saw a familiar face walking on the avenue, both surprised by the way we looked. The years have changed us too.
Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Gung, October 25th, 2024. The name of this episode is Trump is Putin's Puppy. We're about 11 days out from this election. I call it a selection. I believe it is the most important event in our history since we won the Revolutionary War back in the 1700s. What's at stake here is our democracy derived from our Constitution. This is an event that will decide who Americans are and what we are going to do. I know what I am. I know what Americans are. A little bit about me, so you take me deadly serious. Middle-class white boy, enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1966, went to Paris Island. For the first time, I was with Negroes and Latinos, but through all of that, I went from private to captain. That means I'm a Mustang. I volunteered to serve in Vietnam. I served as a Marine combat officer. Obviously, I survived. Most of my friends were killed there or wounded. So I'm what Trump would deem me, I'm a loser. And all the people that served in Vietnam that were killed, hear this thing? 58,000 plus. They're suckers. They served, they're all suckers. I want to read you something. Went to the VA one day, and they have a display there of paintings and photographs of Marines and soldiers. And I went up to this cabinet, glass cabinet, and I read this. This was a Marine general. Quote, "My heart goes out to the mothers who bore these young fighting men and had to raise them growing up, feed them, educate them, and had to see them come to a foolish war. My heart bleeds for their mothers. These young men are the bravest we have ever seen in my lifetime." Major General Bruno A. Hochberg was commander of the 3rd Marine Division headquarters. He was killed on November 14, 1967. Below this was a photograph of a Marine. It was a Marine by the name of Tom Keppen. I knew him, we served together. A photograph of him out in the field with his Marines. He was on his knee looking north. A few seconds after that photograph was taken, he was killed. He was, how can I say? He was one of the last survivors of the officers from Bravo Company. I knew him very well. So what I'm telling you is that I've been around, I've been to war, I've been a criminal defense attorney, and I'm trying to get through to you people out there. This is a crisis. This is not merely election. This is not merely about different issues. This is a crisis, an existential threat to our Constitution and democracy. I don't know how it came to this, but we have a tyrant trying to become a dictator in America. How did we get here? I've told you before that Trump, is a phony. He started, business, but I know that most of the time he was taking in Russian oligarchs' money. I mean, it came from Putin. I've told you this, I could prove it. Uh, what bolstered him is he became a super reality star. To me, he's nothing but a big bully, and bullies that I know of, when you stand up to them, they back off. They're really cowards. Again, how did we get here? And this bully, this coward, this unfit person doesn't have the character, the experience, uh, the integrity to be our leader. It's a shame that we are going through this with him. And he's up against Kamala Harris, who is a woman of conscience, a former assistant district attorney, a former DA, a former, I think, congresswoman and senator. She's been around, she's experienced. I know her type. Trump can't compare to her at all. He calls her names. Calling people names is the lowest you can do, the lowest you can get. Never call people names. You can call them what you believe they are. Don't call them names. Don't use profanities like he does against her. That shows a mean person with a small mind. That's what Trump is. All right. When I volunteered for the Marine Corps in 1966, I enlisted. We took an oath. But before I go there, I want to read to you the oath that Donald Trump took. I guess it was January, when was it? January 2017, January 20th. This is the presidential oath, which is part of Article 2 of our Constitution. Imagine him saying this and what we know about him. Quote, I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or evasion, and that I will and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. This bully, this unfit person, the first thing he pledged to do was to protect our Constitution. He didn't do that, did he? In fact, he tried to undermine our Constitution. Think back to what we saw, what we heard, what he did on January 6th. He tried to overthrow our government, our Constitution, our democracy. That's how bad he is. It's an insult to me and many of you out there that he is actually in a position to run for president. All right. Now here's the oath that I took. I, Joseph Giannini, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the U.S. against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. That's the first thing I said, or we all said that day, March 15, 1966. We pledged to defend the Constitution. We weren't pledging ourselves to a person, not even the president, the Constitution. I did it, and millions of young men did it before me. took this oath and went off to war. Millions of losers and hundreds of thousands of suckers that died in combat. How dare he? And to speak to about John McCain, John McCain was a coward because he got captured. John McCain was the real thing, a real man. He had experience and wisdom and integrity. And when the North Vietnamese came to him and said, "We are about to free you," remember, he was severely injured when he came down from this plane. He had broken some arms, or broke his arm and something else. "We're about to free you." His question was, what about the other prisoners? What about the other Americans? "No, only you." His response was, "No, I won't go until they go." That's the kind of man he was. That's a true hero. And Trump demeaned him and ridiculed him. Trump is a what? He's the worst of the worst. Oh, man. All right. I don't know how Americans can't understand, or some Americans can't understand what a threat he is. We were all fixated on January 6, 2021, to what was happening in our capital. Our capital was under siege by Trump's violent mob. I mean, a mob of 1,000 intent to overtaking our capital, intent on grabbing congressmen and maybe senators and Nancy Pelosi. And also, when they heard that Pence would not bow down and kiss the ring of Donald Trump, that Pence was going to certify a fair election. They wanted to hang Pence. This is Trump's doing. He got indicted for that. How bad can you be? He's a felon 34 times over. He's been convicted for molesting a woman. He's under indictment for trying to overthrow our government. And he's running to be our president. How can that be? You know something? The Supreme Court said he's eligible. He's eligible to run. There are states out there that said, no, he's not. He's a convicted felon. He's under indictment. He's not eligible. Supreme Court says he is. That's very strange, because there's not an officer, I don't think, in the land that will say you're qualified if you are convicted of a felony. I don't know of any office like that. All right. I can't remember a time in my life that I've been so angry and so upset. I'm 81 years old, and I came late to politics, and I've never seen anything like this. There has never been an event so crucial and so dangerous to us, to our democracy, based on our Constitution. And I can't understand how all Americans don't see it that way. Trump is the biggest loser I've ever seen. The only reason he survived as a businessman is because he took money from Russia, from Russian oligarchs. This is absolutely true. It's provable. The unfortunate thing is that when he was doing it, He was doing it with an FBI informer by the name of Felix Sater, who at the time was working for Robert Mueller and Andrew Weissman. Why this happened to this day, I don't know why it happened, but it happened on their watch. And it happened for a long time. Felix Sater, for many years, was Trump's main partner, main business partner, making deals, one deal after another. Felix controlled Bayrock, that was in Trump Tower, and Trump controlled the Trump Organization, and they were money laundering from Russia to Russian oligarchs. So he was basically doing this for Putin. That's why he loves Putin so much. It's all about money. And a guy that smears the military, when it was time for him to serve, I don't think he went down to the local draft board, went down there in person. But there's no doubt he had a letter from a doctor claiming he had bone spurs on his feet. You know something? I have a bone spur on my foot. It's pretty big. I would never think of using that to get out of serving. So he, like many, many others that we know, famous people, they got deferments. If you went to college every year, you got a deferment. If you went to graduate school, you got further deferments. So a guy like Trump got 7 deferments. He went to college, he went to graduate school, 7 deferments. Well, so did Biden and Giuliani. And Clinton probably 8. Think about this now. Every time they were deferred, someone went in their place. And I know personally the type of people that went in their place. They were really the backbone of this country. They were young boys from rural America, from the mountains, from the plains, and from the ghetto. Young boys, black and white and Latino. Every time Trump got a deferment, one of them went in his place. Well, the chances are that 1 out of 5 got killed. They were just 18 or 19 years old, and they were killed serving their country. They did what they were told to do, go and fight for freedom and democracy against communism. They never thought it was a lie. All right, at least 1 was killed, and at least 2 more, 3 more were seriously injured, so bad they'd have those injuries for the rest of their lives, and 1, maybe 1 out of 7 like me, came back with it seemed like no injuries. Not true, because while we were in Vietnam, we were being poisoned by our own government. So he brags about what he did during the Vietnam War. He told Howard Stern, the only thing I worried about was getting a sexually transmitted disease. That's what he said to him. I had someone on my show not so long ago, Jay Goldberg, probably the best lawyer in our land in the last 100 years. And he said, and I believe it, that nobody should run for federal government until after they had served in the military, active service. It says something about their character. And you think back, our first leader, George Washington, was a general. And there have been a lot of people in the military, like Grant, like Eisenhower, that were great leaders for us. And here we're going with letting this guy run against a black woman. It's perfect, though, because she's going to take him down. She's going to take him down. A black woman of conscience is going to take Trump down with all his MAGAs or maggots. Perfect, as far as I'm concerned. But please, please, Don't any of you out there believe that we are going through an election that's not out of the ordinary. We are in a war to preserve our Constitution and our democracy against a small-minded, mean-spirited tyrant. It embarrasses me, it should embarrass you. He admires dictators. He admires Putin. Putin is so powerful that he can wage a war and get hundreds of thousands of people killed, and he gets away with it. There's really no opposition in Russia against that war, or it's very small. And if you go against him, you wind up in prison and dead. And the last thing, oh my God, and it makes me so proud. A Marine that served with Donald Trump, served when he was his Joint Chief of Staff under Trump, a Marine. I got it. Has come forward and said straight out that Donald Trump is a fascist. He admires Hitler. He said Hitler did good things. Can you think of anything he did was good? He tried to kill every Jew he got his hands on. He killed 30 million Russians. He enslaved millions and millions and millions of people. He was a psychotic, and he was able to gain the confidence of too many German people, and we had to stop him. The generals are coming forth. A Marine general, an Army general, and they're saying straight out, Trump does not have the character. He doesn't have the integrity. He doesn't have the wisdom or experience to be the President of the United States. Actually, he doesn't have the qualities to lead any organization, anything, except the people that worship him. The people that worship him. He has turned the Republican Party out. He has turned it into the Trump cult. And all those Republicans that are supporting him, they're prostituting themselves to him. They've bent their knee and kissed his ring. Now, this is really strange. I have a boy, well, I call him a boy, but all my sons, I have two sons, I call them boys. Vic is he's working right now with special ed children, toddlers. And that's his career. He's going to work with special ed. And he is a really good person. He really cares about them. When he was 17 years old, he started, well, actually way before that, he started writing. And many of his stories were published, and he published a couple of books too. But he wrote a story when he was 17 years old that is relevant right now. The title of the story was, My Father Gave Me a Gun. So this is many, many years ago. He's 17. And the story is about a young man on a college campus. And what is happening then? He's not paying attention. We've gone to war. He's not following current events. The draft has been given a new name. It's called the DraftNet. And now they advise you to report to the local draft board wherever it is, it's probably on a fort. And if you don't report, they come out and grab you. Soldiers come, military, come and grab you. And this young man witnesses this happen to his friends on campus. Well, actually, back up. Out of nowhere, his parents show up. And his father talks to him briefly about things are getting really bad. I think we're going to have another Vietnam right here. And his father leaves behind a sea bag. He pushes it underneath his son's cot or bed. And he says, you'll understand. We have to get back. There's a lot to do. It's really dangerous. Then he witnesses his friends actually being grabbed and beaten and dragged away from the campus. And now he's starting to understand things are really changing. He goes to a meeting, first time political meeting, and they're talking about this, about a war that our president has declared that nobody wants to fight. And they're grabbing young men right off the campuses. No deferments. You don't come, we grab you and you go. And if you don't go, we take your family in your place and hold them until you serve. So what does he do? He says, what's in that green canvas bag, that big sandbag, that big sea bag? He opens it up, and guess what he discovers? An AK-47. His father had left him an AK-47 that he had recovered in Nam to fight the government, the oppressive government that now was waging a war of choice that nobody wanted to fight, to protect himself with an AK-47. That's what he left him. We are there right now. My son wrote about this many, many years ago. We are there. So God help us. All right, enough.
I saw a